Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the blog page. I'm Evan. That's Jake. Now, for a time on WJOL, we did a short time, a radio show called the Saturday Matinee, where we talked about movies on Saturday afternoon, like the old Saturday matinees they used to do, where they would show an old movie in the middle of the day. And as a kid, I would watch those films. They'd be bad sci-fi movies, bad horror films, bad action films, bad westerns. They were almost never good. Occasionally, they were good, but they were almost never good. And it's one of the reasons I ended up falling in love with movies. I'm bringing that title over to the blog page, and what we're going to do is the Saturday Matinee is going to be essentially a recommendation that either I'm making, that either he's making, or we're both going to make about a movie that you should watch on a Saturday evening. Maybe you've never seen it before, and we're going to tie it into a specific theme. Like for the month of October going on right now on the blog page, we're doing Horrorween. Terrible title. It deserves your stares and your looks of derision, but I think it's funny and it made me laugh, so I thought of it at 2 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep, is what I'm telling you.
It showed.
Yeah, it does show. But so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make recommendations of various horror films. Today's film is not so much a horror film. It's a film about the making of a horror film. It's the classic Tim Burton film from the mid-90s called Ed Wood. It's about the life of filmmaker Edward D. Wood Jr. He's legendarily known as the worst director ever. Is he really the worst director ever? No, probably not, but he's regarded as one of the worst directors of all time. The two films he's most known for are Glenn and Glenda and the legendary Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is widely considered one of the worst films ever made. It's really not. Actually, Glenn and Glenda is a lot worse. Glenn and Glenda is borderline like unwatchable. You can actually watch Plan 9.
Now we watched Plan 9. It's really bad. There are worse.
But it has this odd heart to it. Like, you can tell the person making it genuinely cared about the movie, even though they literally had no skill at all when it came to filmmaking. And that person was Ed Wood. As I said, it was directed by Tim Burton. It stars Johnny Depp as Ed Wood. It was their second collaboration together after Edward Scissorhands. It also stars Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi, who had a relationship with Ed Wood at the end of Bela Lugosi's life. Actually, Ed Wood gave Bela Lugosi his last few acting roles. He had been largely forgotten in Hollywood by that point. Patricia Arquette is in it. Sarah Jessica Parker is in it. Bill Murray has a cameo in it. He pops up in a couple scenes. And the reason I chose this film is it's someone who loves film, Tim Burton, making a movie about someone who loved movies, and Ed Wood, and those films just happen to be horror/sci-fi movies. That was kind of in the 50s, where horror and sci-fi kind of melded into this one genre for a period of time. And I kind of love that genre. People who have heard me talk before, one of my favorite restaurants in the world is in Disney World, the Sci-Fi Diner, which is, it's inside, but it's a fake drive-in theater. You sit in old 1950 cars, you stare at a fake drive-in movie screen, and they play kind of a 40-minute reel of old shorts, cartoons, advertisements, newsreels, trailers for old bad sci-fi films. So I love that time period, and someone making a movie about that time period is going to be inherently fascinating to me. The one thing I really like about this film, though, that I don't think a lot of people know about, is the reason Tim Burton made the film, and the reason he said he made the film, was because of Ed Wood's relationship with Bela Lugosi. Tim Burton, at the start of his film career, had a very similar relationship with Vincent Price at the end of his life. And that's why he wanted to make it. He wanted to make it as a little bit of a tribute of, I had a relationship with a guy like Vincent Price. I know what Ed Wood was feeling having a relationship with someone like Bela Lugosi, because famously Bela Lugosi's family came out. They thought they were going to make fun of Bela Lugosi. They thought that they were going to be making essentially a mockery of the career of Bela Lugosi, best known as Dracula. But Tim Burton actually kind of wanted to give a little tip of the cap of, I know what it's like to love a legend who's faded out of public opinion, and I kind of want to bring that star back to the forefront. Martin Landau actually won an Oscar for his portrayal of Bela Lugosi in this film. I know it's been a while since you've seen the film. A, do you like the movie? And B, what is it you like about the movie, if you do like it?
I definitely like it. It's a very funny movie. It's a Tim Burton movie, and so there's a lot of character, but what really strikes you is that the duality behind the whole movie really hits home. You've got sort of a mockery of a man's life that was Ed Wood in all of the eccentricities and his ridiculous film career. And then Tim Burton sort of makes a mockery of the mockery of his life, and he makes that whole movie. You've got sort of the duality in Ed Wood and his sexuality and his cross dressing. You've got dualities in sort of the time period that the movie takes place is really interesting, but how the throwback to Tim Burton trying to sort of make a movie in the style of that time period that sort of glorifies as much as makes fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, the film is in black and white, and many of the exterior shots are actually models built of downtown Los Angeles during the 1950s, what it would have looked like, and it looks a little cheap at times, and that was done by design. Like I said, that's kind of another little tip of the cap to this era that
really
he
charming, the way he celebrates just kind of the bad ways that they went about making these movies, or just how the budgets were constrained, and that's how art was at the time. He celebrates all these things, not just in mockery, but in real incorporation of the film, and it really works too. It looks cheap, but it looks purposely cheap, and it all fits together really well.
I love the movie also because it shows someone who truly loved the craft of filmmaking. He wasn't good. Ed Wood wasn't a good director, but he truly loved the idea of making films. And there's this odd feeling where if you've seen Plan 9, and the third act of the film is kind of him getting the financing for Plan 9 from outer space and making it, and the film ends at the premiere of the movie. And that's kind of where it should end, because unfortunately, after that film came out, Ed Wood was kind of laughed out of Hollywood and ended up working in a very seedy part of the entertainment industry. He ended up getting into the adult entertainment industry, and his life, unfortunately, kind of took a downward spiral, both professionally and personally. He ended up having some health problems. He died fairly young. It's a very tragic story. So that's kind of where it should end, is at the premiere of Plan 9, because that's kind of where Ed Wood's professional life ended. And another reason I love it, though, is Tim Burton does the weird thing of making you root for the guy. And what I mean by that is, when you're watching the movie, you know the third act is him making Plan 9 of Outer Space, which is regarded, as we said, one of the worst films of all time. It's really not the worst film ever made, but it's regarded as one of the worst. And as he's making it, the financial backers are trying to take the movie from him. The cast and crew are arguing with him. And you're like pulling for the guy. You're like, you're going to do it, Ed. You're going to make your movie. You're going to make your masterpiece. And that masterpiece is one of the worst movies ever made. And there's something charming about pulling for a guy and going, yeah, it's not going to be good. And everyone knows it but him. But the fact that he doesn't know it is kind of good enough for you as an audience member. And I just love films that have charm like that. I love movies about the making of movies. There's quite a few out there. Living in Oblivion with Steve Buscemi is a great film about the making of film. Boogie Nights, which is a film about the making of an adult film, that's another great movie. But this is probably my favorite because of the era, and also the fact that it's taking something that's inherently supposed to be bad and making you love it. And that's something I have found about film, is that there are bad movies, but there are bad movies that I love. There are bad movies I own that I can watch over and over again, and I know they're bad, but there's something about them that I love. Mm-hmm. It's my movie.
Any big movie fan will say the same thing.
We've always said, what's the worst thing a film can be? Boring. There's nothing worse than a boring movie. And Ed Wood's career was anything but boring. And Ed Wood, the movie, is anything but boring. It's extremely enjoyable. I think it's a great way to get off to the Halloween season. Any other thoughts about Ed Wood as we get ready to wrap up here?
It's a lot of things. It's a great timepiece. It's a funny movie. It's a little dark at times. It's a real good underdog story. It's a classic Hollywood little man trying to make it big story, and which is something you don't see from Tim Burton very often, is to go with a sort of a classic archetype of a movie. It's a very interesting movie, especially with the way they've incorporated so many of the time stylings, the sound and the architecture. But it's just a really good movie.
It's a good movie. I agree with him. It's a good movie. We're gonna keep making recommendations here on the blog page. We'll be back next Saturday with another horror recommendation. So stay tuned for that. But that's Jake. I'm Evan. Ed Wood. Check it out. Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Bill Murray. I think you'll laugh. It'll also tug at the heartstrings a little bit. It really makes you root for the little guy.
Really? Worst film you ever saw? Well, my next one will be better. Hello?